decides to start coming up with an actual plan to straight up murder her husband. Like, I'm sorry, bud, but your time has come to an end because your woman would rather be with a 15-year-old than you. But here's the thing, Pamela still has one major problem with her murder plan, which is that she obviously can't just kill Greg herself because that would be way too obvious. So she decides that the only way this could possibly work is if she somehow manages to convince Billy to be the one to actually do the killing. And yes, I know, that sounds absolutely insane and stupid. But in her mind, I guess she just figured that there is no way anyone would even think to investigate a 15-year-old boy who's still in high school. And so one day when she's hanging out with Billy, which has become a completely normal thing in their twisted relationship, she decides to test the waters and she point blank asks him, would you be willing to do anything to keep me in your life? And Billy, this poor boy who has no idea where this conversation is actually heading or how dark it's about to get, just excitedly nods back and says, of course, I would do anything for you. Pamela just kind of shakes her head and goes, ugh, I don't believe you. So that just kind of made Billy want to prove himself even more. So he starts practically begging. And that's when she finally asks him, would you be willing to kill for me? And Billy's jaw literally drops open because that is the last thing that he would have expected to come out of her mouth. Like, yes, Billy may be in love with this woman, but he is not some hardened criminal. So of course he isn't jumping on board with this plan right away. I mean, who would? Like, oh yeah, let me just go end someone for you. No problem. Wait, I just realized I've been saying her name as Pamela instead of Pamela. We're gonna act like I've just been saying Pamela. But then Pamela starts doing what manipulators do best and she completely switches up her strategy. She starts telling Billy that Greg has been physically abusive and that he beats her, that she's living in fear every day, just really laying it on thick with this whole victim act. But even with that story, Billy is still like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. And so by this point, Pamela is just getting seriously pissed off because her manipulation tactics aren't working as quickly as she wanted to. So she decides to escalate things and tell Billy that if he doesn't do this for her, then she's going to leave him. And now that threat is really starting to get into his head because he's sitting there thinking to himself, well, okay, I definitely don't want to be a murderer and go to prison, but I really, really don't want to lose what I think is my first love. So with Pamela giving him this ultimatum, this do it or I'm gone threat, Billy finally just breaks and tells her kind of hesitantly and probably like with a very shaky voice, okay, I will do it. I will murder your husband for you. And so on this random night in April of 1990, Pamela gives Billy her car keys so that he can go over to the house and, you know, get rid of Greg just like they planned. But about halfway through the drive, Billy starts getting incredibly nervous about what he's about to do. Like the reality of it is just now hitting him, and so he purposely makes a wrong turn and drives home instead. And to be completely fair to Billy here, I too would go home instead of taking another human's life. So like, good job. For now, Billy, you made the right choice. But oh my gosh, was Pamela pissed off when she found out that he chickened out. And instead of being like, okay, I think I'll take that as my sign, she decides to hand over the keys again and say, here, try again and don't mess up this time. My God, she is delusional. So just like she said, Billy tries again, except this time he actually gets his friend Raymond involved to help him. And honestly, how he managed to convince this other kid to join in on a literal murder plan is completely beyond me. Like, what conversation even leads to that? But just like the first attempt, Billy conveniently gets lost again, and surprise, surprise, the plan doesn't happen that time either. And I'm pretty sure that by now Pamela is getting absolutely sick and tired of Billy's constant failures and mistakes, and maybe even getting a little bit nervous that he may never follow through with it. So she really starts pushing hard and getting in his face like, come on, man up already. What is taking so long? And just to really twist the knife and manipulate him even further, she hits him with the classic, wow, I guess you really didn't love me after all if you can't even do this one freaking thing for me. And so once again, with this ultimatum hanging over his head, Billy honestly felt like he had no other choice but to agree. So he just promised her that this time he would actually do it. So for this third time around, Pamela actually decides to plan out everything a lot more meticulously than the previous time. Like, she's designing this plan to be 100% foolproof with no room for error. And she decides that the best way to get away with her crimes is to make this entire thing look like a burglary gone wrong. So the day of this murder attempt starts off with Pamela driving 3 boys to pick up their getaway car. And yes, you did hear me correctly. There are now 3 boys involved in this plot because somehow Billy convinces 2 more of his friends to help out with this. But again, don't ask me how because I myself cannot wrap my head around saying yes to helping my friend commit a crime. But I digress. So as Pamela is driving the boys around, helping them prepare to get rid of her husband, she calmly tells them she's gonna leave the basement door unlocked so that they can slip into the condo very easily. And once they reach the inside, she lets them know, I I need you to ransack the entire house. Like, I don't care. Steal a whole bunch of things. Just make it look like an actual robbery. And then once you've ransacked the entire place, that's when you need to go hide in the corner and wait quietly for Greg to come home. And then bam, that's when you'll take him out. And the boys are all sitting there listening to this plan, and they're like, yeah, sure. I mean, that sounds good to us. And they start doing everything that she said. So the first thing they did was pick up the getaway car, which, by the way, belongs to one of the boys' grandmothers. And I just have to point out, if you plan on using your dear old grandmother's car to commit a literal crime, then maybe you should reconsider. I don't know. Anyways, so after they get grandma's car, they head to the store so that they can buy some tape to cover up their fingerprints, which I can't lie is kind of smart. And then right after, they end up picking up Billy's friend Raymond, who is still somehow on board with this insane plan. And now for those of you who are keeping track at home, we've now got 4 teenage boys who are willing to end their teacher's husband's life. But with all 4 boys assembled, they've now got everything set up and ready to go. And just like they planned, the 4 teenagers secretly make their way through the basement entrance that Pamela had left unlocked for them, all while holding weapons in their hands. Meanwhile, it's like 10 p.m. now, and Greg is finally coming home from an extremely long and exhausting day at work. But the moment that he opens the front door, he immediately can tell that something is seriously off, because for some reason, the entire house has been torn apart with all of his belongings just thrown everywhere. But before he could even fully react to what he's seeing or process what is happening, someone suddenly grabs him from behind and violently slams him against the wall. And Greg is completely startled and terrified, so he screams out, who are you? What is going on? But whoever it was that pushed him just screams back, shut up. And as he's desperately trying to process what the heck is going on around him right now, he starts hearing other voices around him in the darkness. And now he is even more terrified, because at first he was thinking to himself, okay, if it's just one person, then maybe I can fight them off and escape. But now he knows for certain that there are multiple people that broke into his home, and now he's outnumbered. And then at some point, Greg hears one of them yell very aggressively, "Get on your knees now." But something about the entire situation is just super weird to him. Like, it feels off beyond the obvious, of course, because he's starting to realize that the voices that he's hearing all around him sound oddly young. Like, these aren't grown men. These sound like teenagers or something. And that's when he actually sees that the men standing in front of him with these weapons are actually just teenage boys, like literal children. And Greg's probably thinking like, oh my God, wait, what is happening right now? Are these kids? But then one of the boys pulls out a knife and places it directly against his throat. And he just screams at him again, "I said, get on your knees." And so now, however young these people might be, Greg is not about to argue with somebody who is holding a knife to his neck. So in this moment of complete defeat, he just drops to the floor and starts desperately begging for his life, just pleading with them to let him go, because he doesn't want to die. I mean, who in the heck would want to die like this? But as he's begging and crying for mercy, one of the boys just screams at him, "Give me your wallet and your wedding ring now." And so with absolutely no choice in the matter, Greg reaches into his back pocket, grabs his wallet, and throws it at them. But then when it comes to his wedding band, he just looks down at his hand and he starts begging even more intensely, saying through literal tears, "Please, not my ring. My wife would kill me if I lost it." Which is such a tragically ironic thing, being the fact that his wife is quite literally the one who orchestrated this entire attack. But in that moment, Billy whips out his weapon and aims it directly at Greg's head, and he whispers, "God, forgive me." And bam, he pulls the trigger, and just like that, Greg is gone at just 24 years old. Immediately after the shooting, the boys quickly make their way to their getaway car and speed off into the middle of the night. And while all of this horrific violence was happening, Pamela was conveniently at school where she worked at, just making absolutely sure to be seen by as many people as possible, because this would be her alibi, her proof that she couldn't have possibly been involved. And as soon as she felt like she'd been seen by enough witnesses, she just casually makes her way right back home. And the moment that she opens that front door, she immediately jumps straight into that acting role of a lifetime, just letting out this vicious scream the second that she discovers Greg's body. And very quickly, police arrive to the scene and they just start looking around. And exactly like Pamela had carefully planned, it really does look like nothing more than a robbery gone tragically wrong. But here's the thing, these police officers start noticing that there is just something off about this newly widowed woman. Like, yes, she's been crying, and yes, there are tears, but there isn't really any emotion behind it. Like, these officers have seen real women lose their husbands. They've witnessed real devastating grief and real tears. but for some reason, Pamela's tears just dry up suspiciously quick. And if anything, like if we're gonna be completely honest here, she seems more annoyed that the police want her help in solving her husband's murder investigation than actually heartbroken about his death. The red flags were just laid out everywhere, but still, at this point, there wasn't any concrete evidence that could connect her directly to the crime. And plus, she had a rock-solid alibi. So police just kind of had to accept it, and they were like, okay, maybe this was just a robbery gone wrong. Until an anonymous person calls into the police station, just out of the blue. On the line is a little girl, and this girl claims that one of the boys told her about the plan to take Greg's life. And on that call, she tells the police everything. How it was actually Pamela's plan from the very beginning. How she basically manipulated Billy into doing all of this. And to top it all off, she gives them the names of the boys that were involved. I would say snitches get stitches, but I'm so glad she did that. Although a kid's statement isn't really enough hard evidence to put Pamela away like on its own, it is definitely enough evidence to open up a serious investigation about her. And while all of this is going on, one of the boys' dads had noticed that his gun had been used without his consent. And on top of that, he noticed it had been suspiciously cleaned off. And so given everything that's been going on around town, he decided to bring it into the police station. And when Billy and the other boys hear this, they immediately panic and they try to run away out of state to avoid getting caught. But honestly, it did not take long for police to track them down and arrest all of them. And so now, with all of the boys in custody, the police honestly just need one more final piece. And that piece is a confession from Pamela herself saying that she orchestrated this entire thing. So police come up with this plan when they decide to wire one of them up with a recording device and make them talk to Pamela to incriminate herself. And this woman, having absolutely no idea that this child is wearing a freaking wire, just starts spilling everything. She's blatantly telling them that all they have to do is claim that they don't know anything. Just keep your mouth shut, stick to the story, and everything will be fine. But here's what I think is just absolutely hilarious. As she's talking to this wired up kid, giving them all of this advice on how to avoid getting caught, she literally says, and I quote, "I'm afraid that one day you're gonna come in here and you're gonna be wired up by the police and I'm just gonna be busted." Like, she literally predicted her own downfall while it was actively happening. I'm weak, bro. And so soon after that, on August 1st, with more than enough proof that she was the one that definitely orchestrated this, the police get a warrant for her arrest and they pull up to Pamela's location to take her in. But on that day, she was actually just chilling in the parking lot at school, probably hoping to God that none of those kids snitched on her. And as she's just sitting in her car, an officer actually sees her from afar, and so he goes up to her and he says, "Hey, Pamela," and she very casually, like nothing's wrong, responds with, "Oh, hey, what's up?" And this is the part that's actually really funny to me, but like in a dark, twisted way, because the officer goes, "Well, Pam, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is that we've actually solved the murder of your husband. And the bad news is you're under arrest." And just like that, she has been caught and is going to prison for a very long time. So in the end, Billy ended up serving 25 years in prison before finally being let out in 2015. And Pamela Smart is still in prison to this very day, serving life without the possibility of parole. And mind you, she still denies any involvement whatsoever in her husband's murder. That is just disturbingly shocking, but I'm not surprised. Thank you for sitting through this with me and hearing how disgusting of a human she is. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Mwah, group hug.